14-day carnivore challenge, day 11, fat for fuel. I'm the author, Jason Atkinson. Do you want to know a secret? Burning fat is our default state. Our bodies are designed to use stored fat as energy when there's no food available. That's why we don't die from starvation when we sleep each night. We only interrupt this process by consuming a competing form of energy produced mainly from carbohydrates called glucose or blood sugar. You can think of your body as a hybrid engine that can also use glucose as fuel when present or in times of increased demand. If we're trying to run for our lives, as in an all-out sprint or similar endeavor, that activity is 100% fueled by sugar, glucose. Because we always need some glycogen or stored glucose on hand just in case, we can even convert protein into glycogen to refill our tank for emergency use. Metabolic flexibility, the ability to shift back and forth and combust various forms of fuel to meet our energy demands, is something many of us have lost thanks to a constant barrage of carbohydrates eaten very frequently over a long period of time. If continued, this pattern eventually leads to insulin resistance and, if left unchecked, type 2 or adult onset diabetes. I'll go over this in more detail in the final chapter of this book or this audio program. One of the major keys to improving insulin sensitivity and restoring your innate ability to run on fat is to reduce carbohydrate intake either in amount, frequency, or both. This method, when combined with strength training and cardiovascular activity, produces unparalleled results. How did we get the idea that carbohydrates are so great in the first place? Much of this has to do with the massive disinformation campaign we've all been subjected to for years. In layman's terms, it's marketing. There's a big money tied up in high glucose producing grains and refined sweeteners. Far from the preferred fuel that it's purported to be, glucose is actually toxic in high amounts in the bloodstream. Therefore, it must be cleared before we can resume our default fat-burning state. In our hybrid engine analogy, you can think of glucose as gasoline and fat as battery power. We only switch over to burning fat when the gas tank gets low. In an all-out sprint, we rely almost exclusively on glucose to fuel the activity. Most of us in the modern world never do anything remotely resembling an all-out sprint. We're also constantly topping off the fuel tank even when it's already full. The result is the unused energy is simply converted to body fat and stored in the adipose tissue for later use. In order to clear glucose, insulin is dispatched to drive it either into the muscle cells to fuel activity or to be stored as glycogen for future use, or else into fat cells for the same purpose. When we continually overwhelm our body, the cells become insulin resistant. Eventually, rising glucose levels get high enough to be classified as type 2 adult onset diabetes. Sadly, this condition is now becoming more common among children. The late, great Dr. Robert C. Atkins, a true pioneer in low-carb nutrition, said it best: if you want to burn fat, remove the fuel that burns before fat. He was referring, of course, to carbohydrates. I don't want to give the impression that I believe any and all carbohydrate sources are to be avoided at all times. Our hunter-gatherer ancestors would have occasionally stumbled across some ripe fruit in season, a hive containing honey, or the occasional tuber like a potato, for example, and taken advantage of this opportunity. I believe we should enjoy these types of foods as well, just less frequently and in smaller amounts. This is why I'm known for saying we can eat whatever we want, just not whenever we want. Nutrient timing is also a critical factor that rarely gets discussed by the most sedentary population. To an athlete or fitness enthusiast, nutrition is crucial, and the cycle of prepare and repair is a 24-hour daily reality.